I woke up staring at a ceiling that was not mine. It was too white, too clean, and it hummed softly with light. A steady beeping sound came from somewhere near my head, slow and patient, like it had all the time in the world. I tried to move my hand and felt a dull pull in my arm. That was when panic rose in my chest, quick and sharp, because I could not remember how I got there. I could not remember leaving the house. I could not even remember the end of Thanksgiving dinner. My name is Laura Bennett. I am a woman who has always trusted her memory. I live in Hartford, America, in a blue two-story house with a narrow porch and a maple tree that turns bright red every fall. That tree was planted the year I got divorced, and every season it reminded me that things can break and still keep growing. Thanksgiving that year was at my mother's house in New Haven. I remembered the smell of roasted turkey, the clatter of plates, and the sound of voices talking over each other. I remembered setting my phone down on the kitchen counter because my hands were full. I remembered pouring myself a drink. Then my mind went blank, like someone had turned off a light. A nurse noticed my eyes open and walked over. She spoke gently and told me I had collapsed. She said I was lucky someone called for help when they did. Her eyes shifted when she said it, just for a second, and that stayed with me. My mother arrived soon after, wearing her favorite sweater and a wide smile that did not reach her eyes. She squeezed my hand and told me I fell down the stairs because I had too much wine. She laughed softly, like it was a small mistake, nothing serious. I have never been a heavy drinker. I have always known my limits. Lying there, with my head aching and my memory missing, I felt something cold settle in my stomach. When the room finally went quiet and I was alone, I reached for my phone. It was sitting on the table beside the bed, plugged in, untouched. The screen lit up easily. No cracks. No missed calls that explained anything. That was when I noticed a file I did not recognize. It was an audio recording. The timestamp said 59 minutes. My breath slowed as I stared at it. I did not remember recording anything. I did not remember pressing a button. Still, my finger hovered, then tapped play. At first, it sounded like nothing important. Plate scraping. Forks clinking. Someone is laughing too loudly. The normal noise of a family dinner. Then I heard my own voice, clearer than I expected, saying something about the house. The lake house. The one near the water that everyone pretended was a blessing. Years ago, my family bought it for $420,000. They talked about it like it was proof of success, proof that we were close and generous and lucky. Hearing it now, something in my chest tightened. Then I heard my Uncle Jeff. His voice was sharp, edged with anger. He told me to drop it. He told me it was old business. Someone said Kelly's name. That made my heart pound harder. Kelly is my cousin. She has always been quiet, always careful with her words, like she was afraid the wrong sentence might break something forever. In the recording, she barely spoke. I could hear her breathing, fast and uneven, like she wanted to disappear. I heard myself say I had proof. I did not remember saying that, but there it was, my voice steady, almost calm. The room in the recording changed right after that. Chairs moved. Someone told me to stop talking. Someone else said I was ruining the holiday. Then there was a sound I could not ignore. Ice dropping into a glass. A small clink. And then my Aunt Sharon's voice, close to me, too close. She asked if I needed another drink. The next part of the recording made my hands shake so badly that I had to set the phone down. There was a pause, then confusion. I heard my chair scrape back. I heard myself say I felt dizzy. Then a heavy sound. My body hits the floor. In the background, Kelly started crying. She begged them to call for help. She said my name again and again. No one listened. Instead, I heard my mother say no.
Calm.
Firm. She said not to overreact. I heard footsteps moving around me. Someone lifted my arm. Someone said to turn me so it looked right. A phone camera clicked. Then another. They talked about angles. About how it would look if anyone asked questions. About wine glasses and stares and embarrassment. What hurt most was how practiced they sounded. Like this was not the first time they had done something like this. They repeated the same story until their voices matched, until it sounded natural. Kelly kept crying. She kept saying, "Please. Please call someone. Please help her." Her voice was small, broken, like a child asking for permission to breathe. When the recording ended, the hospital room felt too quiet. The beeping machine felt loud in my ears. My hands were numb. I stared at the wall and tried to breathe. I knew then that I had not fallen by accident. I knew that something terrible had been hiding in my family for years, something heavy and rotten, and I had stepped right into it by saying the wrong thing out loud. I thought about the house again. The lake house everyone loved to talk about. The one Kelly never visited anymore. The one tied to so many memories we pretended were happy. I thought about the way my Aunt Sharon's voice sounded when she offered me that drink. I thought about my mother's smile in the hospital. Too wide. Too ready. Lying there, I understood something else too. My phone had not just recorded a dinner. It had recorded the truth. A truth they thought they could bury under stories and photos and shared lies. A truth that had followed me into that hospital room, waiting quietly in my pocket. I did not know yet what I was going to do with it. I only knew that I could never unhear it. And neither could Kelly. I asked Kelly to come to my house the morning after I left the hospital. Hartford was quiet under a pale sky, the kind that makes everything feel exposed. I closed the blinds before she arrived, not because I was hiding from neighbors, but because I needed the room to feel small and safe. The kitchen smelled like old coffee and lemon cleaner. We sat across from each other at the table where I usually paid bills and sorted mail, and for a long moment neither of us spoke. When I pressed play on the recording again, Kelly did not look at me. She stared at the wood grain of the table, tracing it with her finger like she was following a map she had memorized long ago. As the voices filled the room, her shoulders started to shake. When she heard her own voice begging for help, she covered her mouth with both hands. I reached for her, but she pulled away, not from me, but from the sound. When it ended, she cried in a way that came from deep inside her, quiet and broken, like she had learned not to make noise even when it hurt. She told me everything then. Not all at once. Not neatly. The words came in pieces, with long pauses in between. Years ago, at the lake house, Jeff had hurt her. She was young, scared, and trapped in a place everyone treated like a gift. When she finally told my Aunt Sharon, the reaction was not shock or anger. It was a calculation. Sharon called my mother. They talked about money, about reputation, about keeping the family together. Within months, the house was bought using money from a family trust for $120,000 paid quietly. Jeff's name went on the papers. Kelly was told it was for everyone's good. The message was clear, even if it was never written down. Stay silent and the house stays in the family. Speak up and lose everything. Not just the house, but support, safety, and belonging. Every year after that, small payments were made from the trust. Not enough to look suspicious. Just enough to remind Kelly of the deal. Just enough to keep her afraid. Listening to her, I felt anger rise in me like heat. Not just at Jeff, but at the women who had taught Kelly that silence was the price of love. I thought about every holiday photo, every smile, every toast made in that house. I thought about how easy it had been for me to believe the story they told, because it was comfortable. The next morning, we drove to New Haven together. The police station smelled like old paper and disinfectant. Kelly held my hand so tightly that my fingers went numb. When Detective Mark Goodwin came in, he did not rush us. He listened. He asked clear questions. He took my phone and made copies of the recording right there, labeling everything carefully. He told us we were doing the right thing, even when it felt like we were tearing something apart. I was sent for tests that afternoon. Blood work. Screens. Questions I answered honestly, even when they made me feel foolish for not seeing the signs sooner. A doctor came back later with the results. There was a sedative in my system. Something I had never taken before. The amount was enough to make me dizzy. Enough to make me collapse. It was not an accident. Hearing that was like having the floor pulled out from under me again, but this time I was awake. Things moved quickly after that. Faster than I expected. Jeff was arrested first. Seeing his name on the news felt unreal, like watching a story about someone else. Then Sharon. Then my mother. I did not cry when I heard. I felt empty, like my body had decided it could not afford more tears. The family lawyer, Thomas Reed, was questioned about the payments tied to the house. He had handled the paperwork for years, always polite, always distant. Records showed the truth clearly. Small transfers every year, adding up to more than $85,000 over a decade. Not generosity. Control. Kelly stayed with me during those days. We slept on opposite ends of the couch, lights on, phones within reach. She jumped every time a car slowed outside my house. I did too. We started keeping notes. Dates. Times. Words used in phone calls that came from numbers we did not recognize. Detective Goodwin told us to document everything, so we did. It became a routine. Fear turned into lists and folders and copies saved in more than one place. What surprised me most was how the pressure shifted. At first, there was silence. No calls. No messages. Then it changed. Kelly received a message asking if she was sure she remembered things correctly. Another suggested the recording could be misunderstood. Someone hinted that the court would be hard on a woman like her. Each message was polite on the surface, sharp underneath. I watched Kelly shrink with each one, her shoulders curling inward like she was trying to disappear again. I reminded her why we were doing this. I reminded her of the recording, of the test results, of the fact that the truth existed outside of us now, written down and backed up. Some days it worked. Other days, she stared at the wall and said she was tired. I understood that too well. I often thought about the house during those weeks, about how a place meant for rest had become a tool, about how money had been used not to help, but to trap. I thought about my own role, how close I had been to never knowing any of it. If my phone had not been on the counter, if my battery had died, if Kelly had been just a little quieter. By the end of that chapter of our lives, nothing felt simple anymore. Families were not safe by default. Silence was not peace. And truth, once spoken, did not move gently. It tore through things, breaking them open, leaving sharp edges behind. But it also made space for something else. For air. For light. For the possibility that what came next could be honest, even if it was hard. That was when I understood that telling the truth was not the end of the story. It was the beginning. Once the arrests were made, I believed the worst part might be over. I was wrong. That was when the pressure began. Slow at first, then heavy enough to press the air out of my lungs. The truth had stepped into the light, and the people who lived in its shadow did not intend to let it stand there alone. They pushed back in quiet ways, the kind that leave no fingerprints, but still leave bruises. Kelly was the first to feel it. Her phone rang late at night, always from numbers she did not recognize. When she answered, no one spoke, just breathing. Sometimes the line went dead after a few seconds. Other times, a voice would finally say her name, softly, like it was a reminder, not a greeting. She tried blocking the numbers, but new ones appeared. She stopped sleeping. I could see it in her eyes, dark and hollow, like she was always waiting for something bad to happen. Then there were the notes. One was tucked under her windshield wiper at the grocery store in Hartford. Another was slipped into her mailbox back in New Haven. Short sentences. Careful words. One of them said to remember the house. Another mentioned money, how much it cost, and how many years it had been paid for. No threats, not directly. They did not need to be. The message was clear enough. We know what keeps you quiet. She came to my house one afternoon, shaking so badly she could barely hold her keys. She sat at my kitchen table, the same place where she had told me the truth weeks earlier, and stared at the wall like she was watching something I could not see. She said she was thinking about taking it all back, about saying she had remembered things wrong, about telling the police she was confused. I did not argue. I did not raise my voice. I just reminded her of her daughter, of the kind of world she wanted her to grow up in. Kelly cried and said she was tired of being brave. The next morning, she did not answer my calls. By noon, my chest felt tight. By evening, Fear sat beside me like a second body. I drove past her apartment. Her car was gone. Her phone went straight to voicemail. I told myself she needed space. I told myself not to panic. I did not believe any of it. That night, I found the note. It was taped under the wooden bench on my porch, the one I rarely used. I only saw it because I dropped my keys and bent down to look for them. The paper was folded small, edges pressed flat like someone had taken care with it. I knew her handwriting before I finished the first word. They took my daughter. Do not trust anyone but Laura. My hands went cold. The world narrowed to that piece of paper and the sound of my own breath. I did not sit down. I did not think. I called Detective Goodwin and told him exactly what the note said. He told me to stay where I was and not to touch anything else. His voice was steady, and I held on to that steadiness like a rope. When he arrived, we went through everything again.
Times.
Messages.
Calls.
He asked if I had any cameras. I remembered the doorbell camera I had installed after my divorce, more for peace of mind than anything else. We went inside and pulled up the footage. The video was clear. Too clear. It showed my Aunt Sharon walking up my front path, holding Kelly's daughter's hand. The child looked confused but not scared. Sharon leaned down and said something I could not hear. A black car was parked at the curb. The driver's door opened, and I recognized Thomas Reed immediately. The family lawyer.
Calm. Clean.
He nodded once. The timestamp was visible. The city name was there. Everything lined up. The footage was copied and saved in 3 places. On my phone. On an external hard drive. In the police system. Detective Goodwin did not smile, but I could see the shift in his posture. This was no longer just about the past. Confirmed evidence. Coordinated action. A child taken as leverage. The line had been crossed. From that moment on, my house was no longer just my home. It became a place of meetings and quiet voices. Child protection officers came and went. Victim advocates sat with me at my kitchen table for hours, asking gentle questions, offering water, and reminding me to breathe. They told me what to expect and what not to do. They told me fear was normal. They told me I was doing the right thing. Some days I believed them. Other days, I only believed the facts I could write down. I started keeping a notebook. Every call, every message, every car that slowed down near my house. I wrote dates and times in careful lines. I saved screenshots. I backed up files. Control became my way of fighting panic. If I could name it, record it, and store it, then it could not swallow me whole. Sleep came in short pieces. When I did rest, I dreamed of doors closing and phones ringing that I could not answer. I woke up sweating and checked my locks twice before lying back down. Through it all, I thought about Kelly, where she might be, what she might be feeling, how it must hurt to be threatened through the person you love most. The pressure did not stop, but it changed. No more calls for a while. No notes. Just silence. It was worse than noise. Silence gave my mind room to imagine everything that could go wrong. I learned how to breathe slowly, counting each inhale and exhale as the advocates taught me. I learned how to sit with fear without letting it decide my actions. When Detective Goodwin called with updates, I listened carefully. They had leads. They were moving. They were not alone. Knowing that did not erase the fear, but it gave it edges. It made it something I could face instead of something that floated everywhere. By the end of that week, I understood something important. The pressure was not just meant to scare us. It was meant to make us doubt ourselves. To make us wish for the comfort of lies. I refused to give it that. I stayed. I documented. I waited. And I held on to the truth, even when it felt heavy, because letting go would have been worse. That was the hardest lesson of all. Courage is not loud. Most of the time, it is quiet, shaking, and tired. But it stays. They found Kelly's daughter on a gray morning that smelled like rain. I was sitting at my kitchen table, staring at my notebook, when my phone rang. Detective Goodwin's voice was calm, but there was something lighter in it that I had not heard before. He told me the child was safe. She had been living in a rented house near Providence. She was unharmed. She was asking for her mother. I put the phone down and cried in a way that surprised me. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady tears that would not stop. For weeks, fear had lived in my body like a second heartbeat. Hearing those words felt like someone finally turned down the volume. I pressed my palms against the table and let myself breathe again. The details came later. The rental house had been paid for in pounds, routed through an account connected to a small company registered in Europe. It was meant to slow things down, to blur lines, to make it harder to follow. It did not work. The paper trail was clean enough for experts to trace. Every attempt to hide only created more evidence. Kelly arrived at my house that same night with her daughter wrapped tight in her arms. She looked smaller than I remembered, thinner, like the past weeks had taken pieces of her she would need time to get back. She did not say much at first. She just held her child and sat on my couch, rocking slightly, like she was afraid the world might tip if she stopped moving. They slept there for a week. Sometimes Kelly slept sitting up, her arm curled protectively around her daughter's back. I kept the lights low and the house quiet. I made soup. I folded laundry. I fixed small things that had been broken for a long time, like the loose porch step and the cabinet hinge that never quite closed right. Simple work helped keep my hands steady. As the days passed, the case grew stronger. Medical reports confirmed what the doctor had first told me. A sedative had been in my system the night I collapsed. The dosage matched what was found in my blood. It had not been a mistake. Digital experts confirmed the audio recording was untouched, its timestamps and data intact. There were no edits, no gaps, just the truth, exactly as it happened. The house deal was laid out clearly in court documents. The lake house purchase, the trust money, the yearly payments, all of it was shown for what it was. Leverage.
Control.
Not love. Seeing it written down, stripped of family language and excuses, was painful and relieving at the same time. It was proof that what Kelly had lived with for years was real. Some family members tried to apologize. Others stayed silent. I did not chase either response. I had learned that closure does not always come with words. Sometimes it comes with distance. Sometimes it comes with facts. Kelly started speaking more as the days went on. She talked about things she liked as a child, about the books she used to read, about how she had learned to stay quiet, to stay agreeable, to stay safe. She said being believed felt strange, like wearing clothes that did not quite fit yet. I told her that feeling would change. That truth takes time to settle into the body. Victim advocates continued to check in. They helped Kelly find counseling. They helped her understand her rights. Child protection workers focused on stability, not blame. Watching that process taught me something important. Justice is not just about punishment. It is also about repair. Eventually, Kelly and her daughter moved into a new place. Not the lake house. Somewhere smaller, quieter, paid for with support that came without conditions. The day they left my house, Kelly hugged me for a long time. She told me I had saved her life. I told her she saved her own. We both knew it was true. Life did not snap back to normal. It shifted into something else. Something slower. I returned to my routines in Hartford, but they felt different now. I walked past my maple tree every morning and noticed details I used to miss. The way the light hit the porch railing. The sound of birds settling on the fence. I planted new flowers along the front path, digging my hands into the soil until my shoulders relaxed. Some nights, when the house was quiet, I replayed the recording. Not because I wanted to relive it, but because it grounded me. It reminded me that I did not imagine any of it. That my memory failed me that night, but the truth did not disappear. It stayed, waiting to be heard. I learned to live with the weight of what happened. Some days it felt heavy. Other days, it felt like strength. I stopped blaming myself for not seeing things sooner. Silence can be convincing when it is wrapped in family smiles and holiday traditions. Telling my story changed me. It changed Kelly. It changed the shape of our lives. It also showed me that fear loses power when it is named and shared. In America, with all its noise and confusion, the truth still found a way through. It was not loud. It did not come all at once, but it lasted. After the silence, there was sound again. Not shouting, not chaos, just steady voices, facts written down, and lives moving forward. That was enough.